Your Holiness, fewer and fewer people are practicing faith and religion today. In modern life, people have less faith. Why is that?
다들 주줄이야 더 최다 출루장 마인바 지다 최다 데 냠낸 체다 주줄이야 대바체 주 용르시 두고요래 디금zen 카레나스
나도 지금 아메 오모트니 장배 거둘이야 최 계속해는 요머다.
So the fact is actually when we were first born and we were being nurtured by our mother's care, especially through nourishment of mother's milk, actually there is no idea of religion at the time.
아마를 대화 지금 해봐.
So, for example, we cannot say that the child has some kind of religious faith towards the mother.
가던 거에 내서 거라 매 오면 써야지. 아니 아메도 장부치대 하시 뭐도 취기스하게 요말다.
So there the power of that experience is really coming from the experience of being cared for and loved, including mother's physical embrace.
아주 배지 별안가 사샤나 아메 장부사 체브가리.
So in my case, as I said, I've been lucky to have been loved so much by my mother.
야, 지 거리에네 아메야 더거서 싸워 마셔버지. 도스 부구티 타랭스 샤샤임지 때대 연구리 디때대 부구 삼는 누구도.
Of course, sadly, the fact is also that there are, rare instances where, children don't receive the care from their mother, and which then impacts the kind of the mental life and well-being of the child as the child grows up.
변 튼줄 대비네 싱도가 디 아마되게 오마다 에네 아메도 싸워서네 부구디 좀 제식도가 아마데다 카차리나 부구도 맞아지도가.
So we see that also the effect in the animal world as well, because if there is a neglect of the offspring from the caregiver, the mother, then the child is more aggressive, restless. Whereas if the child receives the necessary care, the little offsprings, animals tend to be more playful. So you can see that sense of security there.
나도 남기
Quran condition the tingsan zambuli nal chode chenye shungro nyur dugu yores. The nyur dugu age ta the kumzen karina kundu gongshe yunasikto. Chol tebachige. Chol to tonantan tebachige nyur dugu yobuchi.
다데 그런 거에 내술이야 변 튼주수이네 매서디 예비체 다미 지금 많이 써데 야 최최 대바단 제니 용도 애니 갈리갈리를 그 숙성으로하지.
So in fact one could argue that sometimes religion can be counterproductive because it might alienate the person from the reality of having sustained by mother's love. And when religious ideology gets emphasized, then one could even argue that that person gets distant from that reality of love.
아멘 저어디 최도 저거가 요말다.
So, once again, the mother's love has really nothing to do with religion.
그런 아주 지 키드 지 튼주수 때문에 많이 저어디 최 저거가 매봐.
So we see that powerfully in the mammals, the animals who have no religion, but the power of mother's love to their offspring is very, very real.
당아주 미 지 저어서야디 양고 최도 제니도 셰대하시도가.
So of course, for us human beings, we could actually enhance that reality of fundamental love that we receive from mother with the help of religious practices and beliefs. That is something that human beings can do.
그 최대 전에 윤도 아니 저어디 마이 참부치 저어서 마이메 제가다 아니 심지어 현존이네 저어치야지 야고도가
So this is a very constructive use of religious faith and religious practice where, based on the reality of love that we experience from our mother, we then are able to extend it beyond our immediate family circles to even to broader world and sentient beings. And this is something that religious practices and beliefs can help us do.
간다 도전인부 정부디 디간이야 저어서의 쉽게 계속으로도
So the basic point is that in this world, what is most important is really love.
세상 아주 저어 당구디 아메자네 아주다 럽셔 통 가서 그랬다 미규 아메자네 럽셔 봐
So our first teacher really on love is our mother, from whom we learned to experience it.
Your Holiness, would people be happier if there were more religious practice in the world?
Zambuli nalolia ta chög tone labji gyapshaba de laglen tarnye mangbu yona di chögi kiba yongurubes nisu nalolia.
더네 안다야 최 시라 셰그메다 네 세쿨러 세디 셰그 모두 최게 셰그메
So my own personal approach in advocating and promoting the value of compassion and love is not to rely on religion. I don't really bring religion into that part of the discourse. In fact, I explicitly refer to my approach as secular, universal approach.
아주 신주관리야 최게 셰그메 봐
The fact is, when we are very small, religion doesn't really play much role in our consciousness.
아메 오모뚜르자네 최게 셰그메 봐
So when we were, sort of being fed on mother's milk, there is no religion in our mind at the time.
데 마이 가서 그래 오메 소야사디 들두조레 직벌 최가게 깨지면도
So being nurtured by mother's milk is something we also share with other animals. So that when it comes to other animals, of course, we cannot speak about religion at all.
더 최고 더네 아니 지 마이 저어셔디 야국샤도
So if we can use religion and the teachings and the practices to really strengthen and enhance that fundamental reality of love that we experience from mother, then that is very beautiful.
Your Holiness, you practice your religion. You're the most respected religious leader in the world. What are the benefits that you find that religion brings to your life?
근데 그게 뭐네? 최근 냠랭 돈에 두번 칸데 쓰여놨어.
I'm Buddhist for practice of Buddha Dharma. Okay. 샴뱅이 로 디트야지다 아니 나로 러시메 버사티 상도다 되기부터 냠도 주고도
So in my own personal practice from my Buddhist tradition, two aspects or two practices that I find personally very powerful. One is the emphasis on the cultivation of a more altruistic orientation of the mind. Always thinking about others' welfare, sort of moving from the self to the other. So that I find very powerful. Then the other aspect of the Buddhist teaching that is powerful is to really reflect upon my own perception of reality so that we move beyond the everyday appearances, because appearances can be deceptive, but the underlying reality is that of interdependence. So these two aspects of Buddhist teachings, one is the altruistic cultivation of the altruistic orientation of the mind and heart, and the understanding of reality in terms of interdependence. They, I find them deeply helpful.
이 싸우다가 싸워디 정신 산지기 싸워들 이거로 왔다. 다 뒤제네 아니 지금 가서 지 족부 삼월로 가다 뒤제기다 많이 세외 장셔버 시다래 삼바들 지금 타네 아니 샤를 싸워려야 될 리도 봐.
So in my own personal practice, the moment I wake up in the morning, I reflect upon this basic reality of who we are as a human species, the fundamental reality of the naturalness of love that we have experienced, and then extend that consideration of oneness of all of us as sharing that reality of being sustained by mother's love and having experienced that. And in this way, I then am able to extend a kind of a sense of concern and caring for all beings, all human beings particularly.
And 정신 산지기 부구디 많이 싸워려야 값쳐야지 정신 산지기 예배 토려야 그런 가셔서도 낭보치리 마시 사티 심숙스부르셔.
So in my own case, based on this fundamental recognition of our fundamental reality of being sustained by love, then in my own Buddhist practice, this practice of recognizing all beings as having been my mother, it's called the recognition of mothers of all beings as mother. This I find to be very powerful.
Your Holiness, can all religions bring the same benefit, or is Buddha Dharma unique in this aspect?
저 참에톤의 펜도체 두그룹에서 이 낭바장장 투무마이 베케주레스.
야 직접 꺼보면 그 추가 더네 그 누가 쳐보두고 남부에 직접 꺼보면 몇도 그러봐 야 되게 더네 삼다네 간다 법스 찍고 그러셔.
So, for example, Buddhism is a non-theistic tradition. So then it tends to emphasize the kind of understanding of the nature of reality, self to other connections, and the basic reality, fundamental reality of love as our experience, and so on. But you can also have similarly powerful techniques and practices from the theistic approach, where the fundamental ground of your faith is that of a creator, a compassionate creator. So one could imagine or one could envision similarly powerful reflections from the theistic approach as well. Because in the end, whether you use a theistic religious approach or a non-theistic Buddhist type approach, the aim and the result is really the same. It's the enhancement of that love.